Okay, so you guys have to try to be as quiet as you can, so just my voice is talking to the movie. Hello, everybody. So I appreciate you understanding. I felt it was appropriate to share with you that my life has been changing in unprecedented ways, as I know is true for a lot of you. And to me, this is actually the most important thing to start with because we are in an ethics class. We are here to talk about how should we be together in the world? What kind of decisions should we make? What kind of priorities should we have? What kind of values should we honor? This is what we talk about in ethics. So again, it's like the perfect opportunity to really do that in a very real way for us right now. So I have, again, some voluntary participants in our class. And I want to talk to you a little bit about care ethics. And as I was preparing for this, I did think through my normal lecture notes where I generally explain where this came from. It was actually, or is often referred to as feminist ethics, and so it's sort of tied to the feminist movement that really began to come out more in the 70s and 80s. I talk a little bit about this history, and that is important, but I think for our purposes, it might sort of dilute the point that I really want you to remember about care ethics. And so here's my just brief disclaimer. I don't use the term feminist ethics because it implies to a lot of our ears that women have a special perspective. And that actually was the idea behind calling it that initially. But what that also implies then to many of our ears, so rightly or wrongly, is that it's more special than a masculine perspective. And what it was trying to get at was the fact that it is a very different perspective. So it just so happened that the masculine perspective may have been more dominant, and it so happened that the feminine perspective throughout our history and Western culture has been muted more so. So that might be true, but basically what we want to think about care ethics as is a new way of seeing things altogether. So it's a different perspective. And who that came from initially, I feel like sometimes gets people's minds going down a more argumentative path, when really the basic idea is very simple. So it's really thinking about what kind of decisions do we make when we care about somebody or care about the person. And so again, using the model of a parent-child relationship, a nurturing parent-child relationship. What kind of decisions do you make when you have that emotional investment in somebody? It does change the way you see things. It definitely changes the way that you prioritize things. Something that might have been previously not important to you, if there is care in the context of that decision, it may lead you to radically alter your priorities. And this is a very pressing question for us because right now many of us are having to decide how much to engage with the fear of COVID-19, wiping us out. So we may be skeptical of that. We may be completely taken over by that fear. We may be unsure of, how much of that is true and what will happen. And so we have this decision to make about how much we should self-isolate. Some of us may have formal restrictions. There may be a legal element if you are, instructed to go into quarantine. That's a little bit more of, it's a different kind of priority than if it's just voluntary. And so I want to talk you through how I made this decision myself. I've actually decided to self-isolate our family quite strictly. Oh, her own marker dropped. How about you give her the chalks? Can you give her the chalks, please?
No, I'm not going to use those.
Okay, well, you guys can work it out, and I will help you with it in a minute. Now, my kids have not left the house in, almost 2 weeks now, except to go for drives. I mean, we're really trying to be as careful as we can. And this was not a choice that I made lightly because it meant that I had to majorly disrupt our lives. It meant that, everything about what my children will now see in the world is going to be different because I've introduced a lot of fear into their life by having to follow this fairly strict measure. So, it's actually making me emotional to think about it because basically my kids, I feel like, have not experienced a trauma yet. And for many of us, that is what this is feeling like. And I want to be very real about that. I want to see the humanity in what we're experiencing beyond what we would normally do in the classroom. So I knew it was a big choice. One thing that did help a lot was to think through how to prioritize my different concerns. So, and this we can do kind of in a larger dimension too, to think about, what types of decisions should our government be making right now? There's a lot of controversy about, is it being handled appropriately? Are we underreacting or overreacting? So, remember when we were talking about pluralist theories, we talked about prima facie duties. And so this was W.D. Ross's brainchild. And so this is our list. Let's see if I can hold it right. This is our list of, just work it out, okay? This is our list of prima facie duties. What can I help you with? Oh, can you add it into your picture? Is there something you can do that would add it into your picture? Maybe you can change the picture in some way. So what we were doing and thinking through it. Okay, now you're going to have to use your own paper. Remember I said we were going to try to be quiet just for the video, and then we can work it out. I'm going to let them beat each other up in just a minute. So we have our list of 7 concerns, and again, there could be other things that are relevant, but this is the list that Ross works from. And what we have to do is choose which ones are most relevant, and then how to prioritize those, so which is most important. So I'm going to choose as most relevant to our COVID-19 should we self-isolate question. I'm going to choose non-maleficence, which is to do no harm. And then I'm also going to choose, okay, can I give you a treat? I'm going to bribe them. All right, so maybe either pull your chair over. Rosie, I asked you to just draw on your own paper. Let's see if we can do that as well. Do you want to see draws on your heart?
No.
Okay. We'll see if we can salvage this video. Hold on. Rosie, you have to let her draw on something just so that we can get through this. All right, I'm still talking to my students here, although you can't see them.
No.
So, non-maleficence is definitely a huge factor because the whole question of the preemptive measures, right? I'm not sick, so I wanted to say that to you too in case you were concerned. My unprecedented life situations is not the virus yet. So that's important to know. But basically, we have to proactively isolate ourselves in order to prevent a larger spread of the virus. Now, that's asking a lot of normal people who are not presently sick, right? So we want to think about, are we doing no harm? Lulu, is there something that I can do for you to help you right now? Can I give you a treat?
I don't want her to draw.
Okay, let's move your things. Rosie, let me give you, I don't know, or you can go play if you want. You don't have to sit right here. We'll make it through. Okay, so non-maleficence is huge, and the other one I'm going to choose is justice, because what we're also wrestling with is it fair to ask this of ourselves? Is it fair to ask this of our society and our industries? Is it fair to ask business? Can you come sit with me for a minute? I think Rosie wants to be on screen is what's happening. She's trying to get some of the, she wants her 5 minutes of fame. All right, this is your big chance, Rosie, so show everybody how wonderful it is to be you. So now, justice, because we are asking a lot to be, businesses to give up a lot, for instance. So if everything closes, then, basically people are fucked, right? So basically, justice, non-maleficence, right? Is it fair to ask us to proactively isolate in order to prevent harm to people, which is at some unknown degree, right? So how much harm could we actually prevent? Is it really as big of a risk? All these questions are in there. So it depends on what is most important to you, right? What is your value structure that's going to help you prioritize? Is this a question of I need to be non-maleficent at the highest degree, or we need to be fair to businesses and to our economy and things and let people resume their normal lives? So I picked non-maleficence. Let me tell you why. So another thing we've talked about with Kant is the idea of treating people as an end, not a means. The idea that we need to honor that very unique and specific dignity that we each have as a human, and that we have our own hopes and goals and aspirations and our own kind of purpose in life. And if we ignore that about somebody else, we are really genuinely not honoring their humanity. And so that is a guiding principle in this, but it also comes back very hugely to me to care ethics and the kind of decision that I would make if I cared about somebody. And in this case, that to me is an automatic answer. That is the kind of, for this case, the tool that really unlocks this dilemma for me. If I can think about this choice as affecting somebody I care about, I can tell you I will stay in my house for the next year if I have to. And I'm very serious about that. So, I don't say it lightly. And in this kind of a situation, I feel like it is more appropriate for me to own that to you. And I've talked about this with you multiple times in class when I've chosen to either share something from my personal life or not share it. And this is a case where, with the help of these theories, it really, for me, very clearly helps make the decision. So, again, just to backtrack, right? Should you self-isolate? If it's about taking care of people, the answer seems to be a little more clear to me. If it's about honoring the humanity in everybody and, you know, our desire to live and flourish and be who we are meant to be or whatever it is, you know, if it's a question about that, it's also very clear to me that being more careful, being more active in preventing the spread of disease is appropriate in this case. And, you know, I believe that strongly enough to the point where I've brought my kids' lives into it, you know. So this is not small stuff we're wrestling with. Rosie, would you like to be seen a little bit more? You cannot touch the camera, but you can come up like this. They did consent to being part of this video, I would like to say. So, yeah, that's what we're gonna go. So we'll do a discussion board. What I'm gonna ask you to do is the journaling prompt first, where you are going to just write freely. Again, you will not be sharing it with me. It's something that you must do beforehand, but it's not something that you're going to necessarily turn in. So I'll give you that journaling prompt. It's gonna be, what am I most afraid of? Something like that. And then for the discussion board, what I wanna do is hear your decision making in the choices you've had to make in your life. So we might be under different legal restrictions, we might have different factors. You know, again, don't share more from your personal life than you feel comfortable with. But basically, you know, how are you making your decisions right now? What are you using? What thought process? It's okay if you come to a different conclusion than me. And again, remember, I welcome that because I'm willing to change my mind if you can convince me to, right? I will definitely end this self-isolation as quickly as I can, so please convince me otherwise, right? So share your thought process around whatever choices you are forced to make or you are, you know, having to navigate through right now, and we'll probably do some follow-up going forward. So thank you for joining in the most entertaining philosophy class ever, and it's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.